Thanks so much. It's so nice to be here with all of you today. Let's take a moment and just arrive. We'll go into a deeper sit later, but for now, I invite you to just either take a look around the Zoom room at the faces of those who are going on this journey with us, or take a moment to go inside, close your eyes, just check in with your own heart. Let's arrive. Welcome, everyone. Our Jewish holiday cycle at different moments in the year invites us collectively, no matter what is going on in our individual lives, to delve into different states of mind and heart. And right now, we're in a 3-week period between the 17th of Tammuz in the Jewish calendar and the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av. This period invites us particularly to make room for our grief in response to loss. And the Talmud assigned a number of profound losses to the days that bookend this period. We think of this time as the loss of the destruction of the ancient temple, but there was a lot more. The 9th of Av marked the loss of a familiar and sacred way of life when the temple was destroyed, both the first and the second. But the beginning of this period, the 17th of Tammuz, also marks a day of breaking, a breaching of the protective walls of the ancient temple. And years before that, the 17th of Tammuz in the rabbinic imagination was also the day that the tablets bearing the Ten Commandments, this fundamental code of civility, were shattered. And perhaps tying the two images together, the image of Sinai and the image of the destruction of the temple, the Talmud suggests that it was in fact the shattering of civility that led to the temple's destruction. Some of you may be familiar with the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. It was about how we treated each other. So that's the context. And we come into this time every year. So as we approach Tisha B'Av this year, as we're in these 3 weeks, I invite you to think about these images of shattering, of loss, and how they may resonate with you now. Take a moment, if you'd like, to go inside and just notice, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in the world situation, what arises for you when you invite in the places of brokenness. Just allow that to be there, not having to search to make anything happen. Whatever is in your heart is just right. But just making room for the places of heartbreak together. I want to share with you a few texts from our tradition that have helped me to open to my own grief and tears and to be present with sad and challenging times. It's not always easy to do. The first, and if you can pull up this text, yeah, it's at the bottom of the screen. The first is from Tractate Brachot, Masachet Brachot in the Talmud, and it says, "Since the day the temple was destroyed, the gates of prayer have been locked. But despite that, the gate of tears is not locked." So sometimes it feels like the gates of prayer are locked, Perhaps there are simply no words for our grief. Perhaps we are at a loss for the words that might bring healing or move us through a stuck place. For whatever reason, words are just not sufficient. And in these moments of my own life, I have held tightly to the possibility that, as the Talmud promises, the gates of tears are open. And I allow my tears to carry me through. We might think, as Rabbi Alan Liu suggested, of these 3 weeks that we're in as the beginning of the annual process of tshuva, the essence of the fall high holidays. Are tears, so central to Tisha B'Av, open the gates for us that will stay open for our turning inward, our returning through Elul, Rosh Hashanah, and until those gates close on Yom Kippur, at the end of Yom Kippur. The expression of grief that begins the book of Lamentations, the book that we read on Tisha B'Av, Echa, this word Echa begins a searching, Ayeka, same letters, which means, where are you? Echa to Ayeka, where are you? Which is directed to the divine, to ourselves, and to each other. So that's the journey that we're just beginning now. And for now, we stand at the tender beginnings of facing any loss, any breaking open that might be hidden in our own hearts. And as the walls are broken open, as the sacred tablets shatter, our hearts too might break open a little bit as well. The Reshit Chochmah on the next page suggests that by allowing our hearts to break open, we create a space for the Shekhinah, a dwelling place that was lost for her with the destruction of the ancient temple on Tisha B'Av. The Zohar teaches that the receptacle of the human heart is like the ark. And it is known that in the ark were stored both the tablets, the whole second tablets, and the first broken tablets. Similarly, a person's heart must be full of Torah. We make lots of room for all of the joy in our life, all of the wisdom, all of the hope. And similarly, a person's heart must be broken so that it can serve as a home for the Shekhinah, the divine presence. And the Reshit Chochmah suggests that the Shekhinah dwells in broken vessels, in the heart that is broken. So last month when I was here, I shared a midrash from the Darshuni Project, where contemporary Israeli women write new midrashim. And Leora Ayalan, who lost her son on October 7th, wrote a contemporary midrash as part of that project that speaks to the power of tears. She relays a story from the Talmud in which a woman who has lost her son and is crying is cast out by the head Rabbi Gamliel's students. The original story is very upsetting. How could they do that? Like, where is their compassion? Where's the compassion of these students of Torah? But in good midrashic fashion, Ayalon turns the scene on its head without changing a single word of the original Talmud text. She imagines that the students told the grieving mother to go forth, not to just leave us be, but to go forth with purpose, not because they couldn't tolerate her tears, but rather so that she might open the hearts of others and invite their brokenness to be expressed. Ayalon in the Midrash likens this command to Abraham going forth, lech lecha, to be a blessing to others. In this case, not with a new theology, but with her own authentic human emotions. In our practice, we have the opportunity to make room for, to welcome whatever our hearts are holding, all of it. We do so not only for ourselves, but also so that when we turn outward again to others, our tears and our joy, but our tears, our open-hearted presence might welcome the hearts of others in authentic connection. So let's sit. Invite you to feel your feet on the ground, letting your eyes close or with a soft gaze. You might want to put a hand on your heart or not. But letting your awareness rest in the area of your heart. Feeling the movement of the breath in and out. Bringing loving awareness, compassion, welcoming whatever is most available, whatever is on the surface of your heart. The Zohar says that the heart is like a sacred ark, holding wholeness and wisdom and holding our moments of disappointment, of brokenness, of grief. So in our practice, we make space for all of it. Just welcoming whatever arises in this moment and then in the next. So we'll sit in silence for about 10 minutes. If we become distracted or overwhelmed, we can always return to the anchor of our breath, steady breath. For the last minute or so of our sit this morning, I invite you to return your awareness to your breath, to the direct sensory experience of the rise and fall of the chest or the belly. Feeling the breath moving through. And feeling your feet as they touch the earth. And when you're ready, in your eyes, you may want to take a look around the Zoom screen. Or keep your gaze inward. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Margie, so much for your teaching and for guiding us in our practice. I hope you have a chance to, everyone can stay around for conversation and sharing reflections in a moment. And if you need to leave us, we wish you tzedchem l'shalom, farewell, and we will see you back here, same time and same channel tomorrow or whenever you can join us. Right now, we have an opportunity for those who are reciting Mourner's Kaddish, remembering loved ones to do so. If you'd like to put the names of anyone remembering today in the chat. Rachel has opened up the chat. Thank you. And you can put their names in, and then you're also welcome to unmute and you can recite Mourner's Kaddish with us. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah
Name of God,
Li'alma Divrach Chirutei
praise
V'yamin
divine will,
Malchutei
so Lord,
B'chayechol
to soon be
U'vyomechol
established in
B'chayei
our
Dechol Beit
lifetime.
Yisrael
Entire house
Ba'agala
of
V'zman
Israel.
Kariv Amen.
May God's
Yehi
great
Shmei
name
Rabba
praised in
Mevorach
eternity.
Olam Va'almei Almaya.
What an honor bestowed on
Yishbach
himself to endure
V'yitbari
bereavement.
V'yitnaseh
Name of the Holy One.
V'yit'aleh
Yours
V'yitpalel
above
Shmei
all
V'yikra
praises, hymns, and songs of
Ela
adoration.
Mikol Birchata
We can
V'Shirata
utter
V'Chata
and
V'Nechamata
King
V'Ran
and
Ba'alma
please of the whole house of Israel who sent
Shlama
God to the
Rabba
universe
Mishemaya Ephraim Olim Ve'al Yisrael
and God grant a
Shalom V'Amach
peace and life
V'Yaseh
for us
Shalom
remote
V'Yachezek Yisrael
through
V'Yakol B'nei Tovel
May
V'Yom
God who ordains harmony in the universe grant peace to us and to all Israel. Amen.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So we'll bring Margie back up here, and thank you so much. And for those who are wondering, I'm at the base Hillel in Chicago, in the Lincoln Park neighborhood for a meeting that I'm at here today. So thanks to Hillel for providing the space today. Anyhow, some people like to ask. You're used to seeing me in my, at home. Margie, thank you so much for your practice and for inviting us to reflect on the themes of brokenness of this time and just to welcome that in. And just a reminder to everybody, if you have a question, to please share it in the chat, please. And question in all caps helps us just to see, and you're welcome to respond. Please just, of course, use practice Shmirat HaDibur, mindful speech. Just being mindful of the kind of space that we create here. So we welcome everybody's questions and try to respond to them mindfully. And we already have, it looks like we already have a question that came in from Rachel or Rachel. Anyhow, can you please say more about where are you? I think ayeka here, right? And the context and more layers. So yeah, you wanna take that?
Yeah, maybe I'll share my screen if that's okay and just show you those letters. So this is the beginning of Lamentations, and this word here is echa, which literally means it means how, but it's used here as just not to understand how did this happen, but just to be with the grief. This it's translated here as alas, or woe. It's just the expression of the grieving heart. And if we take away the vowels um, and change them, we get ayeka, which means where are you? And ayeka was the first question that was posed to humanity in the Garden of Eden once they started to hide from each other, from the divine. And and so we midrashically playing with the word, we begin with echa, with just the expression of our heart in grief, and we move into that searching, searching for the Shekhinah that was lost when the temple was destroyed, searching for God or meaning or connection when it's unavailable to us in our grief. And Rabbi Nachman says that this word ayeka, is the beginning of tshuva, the beginning of turning. When we notice the absence, that's when we begin the search for connection, for the divine that is part of this high holiday period that is coming up. And there's a tiny little book that's called Ayeh by that brings in Rabbi Nachman's teachings about this.
Um, okay, you already started to go in this direction, and maybe now there's an opportunity to elaborate this question here about speaking more about Shekhinah in brokenness.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So the Shekhinah, we sometimes when we're in pain, when we are feel a sense of exile, of brokenness, we wonder where is God and why isn't God making this any better? And one of the brilliant things that our tradition does is to say that there's this aspect of the divine, the Shekhinah, the immanent um, presence, divine presence, that may not make things better, but experiences in her own experience. She is exiled in our tradition from the rest of the Godhead. So there are different aspects of God, and she is, in a sense, separated from her home, from the rest of the divine. And so she feels in herself what it is to be in exile, to be broken, to be estranged. And so she's able to be with us in in knowing what it is that we are feeling. And there's a wonderful midrash that the Zohar brings on the in the Garden of Eden, where it says that God banished humanity from the garden, and but it doesn't actually use um, the the word God. It just says Vayagaresh et Ha'adam, and and the Zohar turns it around and says, actually, what's happening in that moment when we are hiding um, is that we are the ones that are banishing the Shekhinah, that we are cutting her off from her roots in the Godhead. This aspect of the divine that's multiplicity is being cut off from the aspect of the divine that is oneness.
Yeah. There's a few questions that have come in here about the book titles that you mentioned before, and so maybe you want to just type
Right.
it in, Margie, for you. And I think this question that Roberta asks,
Mhm.
about is brokenness necessary or is merely we have to acknowledge its presence is such a rich question. And I think about that and I'm curious how you approach that.
Mhm.
To me, entering this season. this year, but I think in all years, but it's always true, is um, to me, it's an invitation to really acknowledge like there is always brokenness present. If brokenness isn't present in some way, I mean, I really want your life, but like I think it's not a question of like whether we need to bring it around or not. We're human, and it's going to be there. And what's so amazing, I think, about our tradition and about this season. Um, is that, the line from Tisha B'Av, which is the lowest point on the calendar, to 2 months later to Yom Kippur, and they're mirror images. They're inversions. Like it's Tisha B'Av is the Bizarro version of Yom Kippur. It's exactly the same practices. It looks external. It's the 2 days that are 25-hour fasts, right? It's the same practices in so many ways, and yet with completely different valences. One is in the direction of brokenness, and one is in the direction of wholeness. One is in the direction of absence, and one's in the direction of presence. And what I and I, yeah, and I'll finish the point is that like to me, what that's saying is. And these are both present all the time. Like everything on the Jewish calendar, we take one day and we sort of do a hyper concentrated version of, okay, we're going to really feel this one today. Like we're really going to lean in on that, right? But there are pieces of it that are present. There is Yom Kippur that is present throughout the year, and there's Tisha B'Av that's present throughout the year, right? And so it's always there. It's not a question of whether we need to make it happen or not. Sometimes it may be more acute, sometimes it may be less, sometimes it's more visible, sometimes it's less visible, and we have resources to rely on. But I think it's the beauty of this tradition that, gives us a period for really navigating that journey intentionally for one part of the year. But I invite your response on that.
Yeah, and it says in Masachet Ta'anit, the same tractate that lists all the bad things that happened on the 17th of Tammuz and on the 9th of Av, it says that they're the two most joyous days of the year were 6 days after the 9th of Av, the 15th of Av, which is sort of a Valentine's Day, and Yom Kippur. So Yom Kippur is actually this incredibly joyous day, and then right after that we have Sukkot, which is Sman Simchatenu, the time of joy. So it's this idea that by going into the places of tears, that ultimately come through the 7 weeks of comfort after that, and ultimately to this place of joy. But in a more direct response to the question, I think what our mindfulness practice teaches us is that it's not about making anything happen. It's not about going in and digging out and having to find the places of sorrow. It's just a gentle invitation to open our hearts and allow whatever bubbles up to be with that. And so, if in your practice you're experiencing joy, great, that is totally fine. It's really just speaking to the place, these moments in our tradition where we delve into a particular mind state, as you're talking about, Josh, I think are there to support us in the places where we don't allow all that is in our heart to be felt. That's what I love about this midrash that I brought in the at the end is that in the Talmud, the Gamliel's students are not allowing for that for those tears. And what happens in that midrash traditionally is that Rabban Gamliel, their teacher, cries so much in empathy with this grieving mother that his eyelashes fall out, and the students can't make room for that. And so Leora Ayalon turns it around and says, no, we need to make room for everything. Not to like make it happen, but just to be present, just to give space, whether it's tears or whether it's joy in a particular moment, knowing that it's going to change.
Yeah. Susan had asked this question about what if the gates of tears are not open, right? And about this sounds like a sad case. And I wonder how you want to, if you want to respond to that, Margie.
Yeah, absolutely. And um, first of all, it's just about allowing what's true to be true. So if, again, if the tears are not available, then just to be with that with compassion. Um, what I love about this midrash that I brought in at the end is that sometimes the presence of another person, especially when they are sitting in their hurts, can help us to open the pathways to our own tears. Um, and just the presence of another person allows for that. But the other thing is that our bodies and our systems have their own intelligence, and sometimes we're not ready to open to our tears, and that's okay too. So just that this is really about being gentle with ourselves and being welcoming with all that's in our hearts, but not in a way that is violating what feels like safety or our own intelligence.
Yeah. Um, there was one other question that I saw something here about, and this is a timely question, about not falling from grief into despair,
Yeah.
especially over the grief for the state of the world.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and go ahead.
So maybe I'll just put this, I can put it in the English. I'll just put it in the chat. This is a text from um, Rabbi Nachman, that says that grief, that broken heart, and despair or depression are two different things. And he has a whole sort of pseudo medical analysis of where they live, but basically that the upshot is that if we take a little bit of time with our grief, sometimes the fear is that it's going to overwhelm us. If we just tap into our tears, it's going to overwhelm us. But Rabbi Nachman suggests, and again, with all of this, investigate it in your own experience. Don't take their word for it. But his suggestion is that if we take a little bit of time every day for our grief, for our tears, then it actually helps us to not fall into the sea of despair. Um, and we know this with our Jewish morning practices, that we have time every day in a year of loss in our personal lives to say Kaddish, to open for a bit of time every day to really be with our grief. And I think in my experience, that is helpful. It's a helpful practice. But again, it's different for everybody.
It's really interesting, and this will conclude. It's also interesting in the traditional liturgy. Um, And I think in a lot of liberal communities this isn't necessarily done anymore. But right after the Amidah, right after the central prayer, three times, well, twice a day, morning and afternoon in this case, there's the practice of tachanun, right, which involves actually the prescribed action is putting down one's head, lowering oneself. After you've been standing before God, you're not putting yourself, you're putting your head down in grief, in mourning. Um, Precisely for this reason, and that's where this, just as if the Amidah in one sense is like this expression of there's a little bit of Yom Kippur flavor in there. Certainly, at Shabbat we get a little taste, etc. But here we've got a piece of Tisha B'av that's like that is on a daily basis is there, and it's a sense of this lowness, literally like physically lowering ourselves in body, but also in emotional state to make space for the grief. But then we get back up, right? And then it's like, okay, and now that's done, and we're going to continue on with our day. So, just so much wisdom in our tradition.
And we do it in community
Mhm.
because it's hard to get back up sometimes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And sometimes
exactly.
we can't for a while. And again, community holds us in that. So I think what our mindfulness practice brings to our engagement with our tradition is the allowing for whatever is true for us in a moment with compassion and not needing to make it different.
Okay. That's a good place to stop. Margie, thank you so much for your teaching and your wisdom today. As always, thank you to everybody for contributing to this conversation on the chat and for your presence here and your practice. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same channel. If you want to save the chat, now's a good time. There are three dots at the top of the chat box, and you click on that and it says Save Chat. So you can do that before we close it up. Thanks to Rachel for holding down our tech support today, and thank you, everybody. We'll see you again soon.